Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the School Rules Podcast. My name is Dr. Jerry Burkett, and welcome to 2026. We're back better than ever. Looking forward to what would be the second half of the school year. And as we kind of live our lives in semesters around here, at least in the education world we do, because the year starts in August and it ends in May. And that's sort of the cycle that educators have to go through. So, we're kind of at the midway point, even though we're at the start of a brand new year. So hopefully you had a chance to get rested, refreshed, and ready to go. I know it's winter. It's tough to get motivated. And I live in Texas, so winter is weird in Texas anyway, where you have, sometimes it's 75 and then the next day it's 30. But at least it's been dry, which hasn't always been great. We could use some rain, but we don't want the ice or snow. That's just not our thing in North Texas. We struggle with that, and we're not good at it, period. End of story. So it usually comes around February anyway. But that being said, I hope you're rested, relaxed, ready to go. Getting back into the swing of the school business sometimes is a tough thing to do, especially if you're a teacher watching or listening to this, if you're a principal watching, listening to this, or a superintendent, it doesn't matter. It's just tough getting back into the spring swing, as I like to call it. Now, my former mentor and longtime superintendent at Grand Prairie, Dr. Susan Hall, used to tell us all the time that anybody can teach in the fall. Anybody. Anybody can get up in front of students and start a fall and get through Christmas. Maybe that's where it gets difficult, is around December. But other than that, anybody can do it. But the real heroes are the ones that can handle the spring and the craziness that comes with it. Because I know you're already thinking, when is the next holiday? When is spring break coming? And unfortunately, where things have shifted in the spring semester is that focus on testing and the testing season that's coming. Now, in a later podcast, I do want to talk about the testing changes that will be happening in Texas related to STAR, and we'll break all that down. But I don't want to bore you with testing as we start off the new semester right here and with this episode. I want to talk a little bit about the status quo and the dangers of falling into that status quo. And I want to make sure that as you're focused on bringing your faculty back and getting things rolling again, hopefully you've given them that time to get their groove back, get started, get some planning going. But as you're thinking, as you're a school principal and you're thinking about the next phase, what does that look like for you? I want you to think about the why, the vision. And an important aspect of this is the difference between compliance and commitment. And as you're a school leader thinking about this, whether you're a department chair, principal, assistant principal, if you're some sort of school leader on campus, I want you to think about the differences between those two. So let's talk about that. Let's break it down. Compliance and commitment. And how can we get through the second half together here in the spring? Now, for a long time in education, I've always said that education, particularly public education, unfortunately is set up for mediocrity. And maybe that will be a later podcast that we could talk about either. But you do have elements in a lot of schools across the country where compliance is the expectation. I want you to think about that for a minute. What does that mean? Compliance is simply doing the minimum to stay out of trouble. Doing the absolute proficient level of expectation to move throughout the semester, to move throughout the school day. And unfortunately, in a lot of our schools across the country, our students, our parents demand and our students need more than just that compliance level. They need a much higher level. They need a commitment level. They need teachers who are able to build that passion, that student growth, that level of belonging. And I know what you're thinking. It's very tough to do that day in, day out, every single day, and to have that high level. But our students need it. And our parents demand it. And you have to think about it. Sometimes you're treated like this is a service industry, and you're expected to provide that higher level of service for students. And then for some of you, it comes more naturally than others. But from a leadership perspective, when we lead with a compliance mindset, you can automatically see how that drags down the level of commitment that people have to your organization. And I say this as a researcher, having done this level of research and finding out why teachers leave school buildings is because they leave buildings when the principal is not as committed to the school as the teachers are. When teachers come in and bring a higher level of commitment and understanding, and then when they get there and the school leadership doesn't treat them like professionals, hires their friends, plays politics, hides in their office, doesn't respect them as professionals, then, of course, the teachers are going to take their talents and go somewhere else where they feel valued. Because the bottom line of any employee is that they want to feel valued, they want to feel important, and they want to know that the work that they're putting in and the contributions that they're making are recognized by leadership and that they're making a difference wherever they are. So maybe your principal has already had that first meeting of the new spring, and maybe they have it, maybe it's coming up, and hopefully I can catch everybody here early, here just being it's January 14th is today's date. And by the time this is published, hopefully I can inspire someone that whenever you start that first meeting of the school year, you're not automatically talking about this boring stuff, that you're kicking it off with state mandates and testing and scheduling and the work that has to be done. Look, we get it. Everyone gets it. It's a part of the job. We absolutely understand all of that stuff is coming in. But I work with a lot of future educators. I am coaching and teaching teachers and principals here at Texas Women's University every single day, and I'm seeing these fresh-faced, new, young people that are ready to go and take the challenge in education. I've been doing this for 27 years. I try not to be jaded anymore, and I certainly want to be excited for my new folks that are going into the profession, whether it's a leadership role or a teaching role. And they're excited to be a part of your program. And the last thing they need when they come in and they're brand new people ready to take on the challenge, these people are coming to you with a fresh idea of what their why is, why they chose this profession, why they want to work with students, why they want to be at a certain school district, why they want to be in education. And it's easy to get away from that. It's easy to forget when we get bogged down by what the district needs us to do, and my boss needs me to do, and lesson plans, and parents are on me for this, that, and the other. And it's hard to get motivated sometimes when you're bogged down in the compliance piece, okay? Well, I say there's a balance. You can strike a happy balance. You can get folks to shift from that compliance level over to that commitment level very, very easily by just talking about why are we here? The work that we're doing is important. And one of the best ways of doing that is just tell a story. Remind everyone of the impact that you're making, that colleagues are making, and find that one story, that one difference maker story, that one kid, we all have one, we all have that one story, who maybe they were struggling in October, but they found their footing in December, or that one teacher that was really struggling and then found their footing. We all have those stories. I remember as a principal, I remember telling a story about how I had a box of contacts that had to be recalled. And so, you get the notice in the mail or you get the email and then it comes and it says, hey, well, we made a mistake at the factory and your contacts are contaminated and we're going to have to replace them. So at your earliest convenience, you go back to your retailer, blah, blah, blah. And I remember that, when I remember getting that, I'm like, it's so easy for a company just to do that. Just, you know what, we made a mistake, we're going to recall, and we're going to give you your money back or give you some new contacts, a new product, whatever it is. And I remember talking to my faculty about how we can't recall a child's education. We don't have that benefit. We don't have that luxury of going back to the parents or the students and go, you know what? I wasn't my best today and you didn't get a great education, or I didn't do that reading assessment, or whatever it is. We're just going to have to recall that and start all over again. So instead of bogging everybody down with the 40-slide PowerPoint of administrivia, talk about your why. What are we doing? How are we challenging one another to be better? How are we coaching one another? How are we creating a system in our schools where we can work together and support one another before one of us just hits the wall and crashes before spring break? Because that's what's happening. As someone who's also studying and researching mental health of our teachers and our administrators, that we need to be taking things out of the backpacks that we're carrying instead of adding more to it, and finding ways to support and help one another through the struggle that can be education. And let me put it to you in this perspective. As a school principal, what you should be doing is standing on the sidelines cheering everybody on. Like, if your teachers, think about it, they're running a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you're the ones that are handing them the water at each benchmark level of that marathon. You're the ones that are supporting them, and as they turn the corner, you're handing them that glass of water. You're patting them on the back. You're saying, "Great job. I'm here. I will see you at the finish line." That's what your role is. Your role is to serve behind the scenes, keep problems from crossing their desks, head parents off at the pass if they have any issues that come to you, supporting your teachers, treating them like professionals, giving them the space to teach, to educate, and then coming along and coaching them and supporting them along the way. That's how I challenge you to start off your school year. If you're in any school leadership role, department chair, campus principal, assistant principal, counselor, doesn't matter, set the tone. Set the tone early. And be the one that strengthens the campus by saying, "You know what? This is why we're here. This is what we're doing. We're doing it great, and we're going to continue on," so we can carry that momentum all the way to May when you're going to need it the most. Welcome back to the School Rules Podcast. I am here with good friend and colleague, Dr. Michaine Ashley. She is an assistant professor of teacher education, and she's relatively new to us here at Texas Women's University. But please welcome Dr. Ashley to the show. Michaine, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so excited that you're here today. You're actually going to be my first guest in our professor series.
Very cool.
So I appreciate you being here. I was lucky enough to be on the interview committee that brought you here.
Yes.
And when I saw your resume and what you bring to the table, I was excited because, being a K-12 person, I have a heart for K-12 people. And on top of that, you are very enthusiastic and excited about STEM and STEM education, and that is a lot of your work. So we're going to get into that today. But before we do, tell us a little bit about you, your life, your work as a professor. Just give us an idea of who you are.
So my background is in K-12 STEM education specifically. I taught about 7 years at the high school, middle school, high school level, and then 3 years working in elementary. My bachelor's is actually in chemistry, so I came from the hard sciences over into education. So I'm almost kind of a K-12 education unicorn when it comes to STEM, because a lot of people that go through the hard sciences don't come into education, and a lot of people that are in STEM education don't have with that hard science background. So I'm really focused on kind of bridging the gap between the two and helping take that knowledge from the hard sciences and implement it into our K-12 area so that our teachers are really ready to teach science in a way that's meaningful and research-based to our K-12 students.
So what does that look like? Because I was fortunate enough at the end of my principal career, I had a chance to design and create a STEM academy at the elementary level. And it was hard to try to figure out what kind of curriculum are we going to use, the hands-on experiences, the inquiry-based stuff. We were looking at all kinds of things, and it was extraordinarily difficult. And then plus, we were talking about, I have this current staff of folks, and they're not all STEM prepared. So there's that. And then there's this confusion with STEAM, which at the time my district was like, well, we really prefer STEAM, so let's talk about that. And I don't really know what that is either still, 15 years later. So walk us through, what does that look like for teachers to have that level of STEM education?
So here at TW, I'm coming in as a new professor, so this is only year 2 for me, so it's kind of beginning waves here. But I have a couple-prong approach within TW for our students, and we're beginning our outreach and branching into our local school districts in Denton area. So first, within TW, I've taken over the Science Methods course for elementary education, and I've done a full redesign in the course that focuses on inquiry-based experiential learning, and through specific pedagogical approaches like project-based learning, problem-based learning, and the 5E instructional model. So in that, we still have to prepare our students for their certification exams, but rather than being only a cert exam course, it focuses on good teaching and good pedagogy for science in the elementary classroom. So we really dig into the content, but we also dig into what does inquiry-based learning look like? What does it look like to engage students to where you're the facilitator and they are the ones actively being the scientists in the classroom, doing the learning and the inquiry themselves. So within that course, that's one element of within TW. I've also launched the K-12 STEM education micro-credential. I got approval last year, and it will launch in the fall of 2026.
That's awesome. That's great.
So I'm hoping this spring to open it up for applicants. So hopefully starting after Christmas, open that up so that we can launch that first cohort in fall of 2026. That's open to anyone within COPE or that has any connections to K-12 STEM teaching. And within that micro-credential, we will again focus on that inquiry-based learning, experiential learning, 5E, project-based learning, and all of those elements of good teaching and pedagogy. But that micro-credential also requires 15 hours of hands-on, in-person, field-based experiences in the STEM classroom. Because as much as we can teach, these are good pedagogies, these are good instructional strategies, we want them to get in the classroom and actually do it themselves. So those elements within TW also connect to our external partnerships. I've partnered with the Office of STEM Collaborations and Initiatives, Dr. Diana Elrod, and we've built connections with 2 out of the 3 STEM elementary schools in Denton so far. So we have connections at Hill Elementary and Alexander Elementary, and we're going to hit Reeves Elementary in the spring. And we've built connections with them, going out and doing STEM activities with them on their campuses. In the house huddles, we actually have Alexander Elementary STEM night on Thursday.
Okay, great.
And we're going to be building robotic hands. We call them handy bots, where we're actually building the robotic hands with students for STEM night. And through those partnerships, we're going to be able to get our students in their classrooms for observation, for mentorship, and for experiences, which to be a good STEM teacher, you really need all of those elements and finding a way to tie them all together.
I've had a chance to work with Denton ISD too for some projects, and they're great folks. They're doing some amazing work, and they're good partners for us. So when you're in those schools and you're working with those teachers, what are you identifying as their biggest need? And how do you think Texas Women's can address that need as we push students through our teacher education pipeline? What can we do better for STEM education?
So each school has their own challenges and things that they are very strong with and things that they need support on. For Hill Elementary, they are brand new this year. They just opened, so it's new faculty, new staff, new principals, and they're coming in hiring teachers just to fill the spaces. So talking with Principal Blau, she's really identified the need for support for specific STEM pedagogy and instruction. A lot of the teachers came in with experience or brand new, but they don't have a lot of experience with what does STEM teaching actually look like. And because Hill is a STEM elementary, it has elements embedded into all of the areas. So even if they're talking about English, there's a STEM element in there. If they're talking about history, it's connected to STEM. So with talking with her, we've talked about providing support through professional development connections with TW, going on campuses and helping support the house huddles. Each morning on Friday, they do house huddles where we get in and do some kind of cool hands-on activity with the students. And our goal is for them to see TW and know we're doing something cool and fun today so that they can see themselves as that scientist.
Because this is a leadership podcast, and I'm going to talk to principals and superintendents here. And so when you're, and Denton may not be in this boat, but I'm going to throw out the funding question here. Do we have enough money to do this? And what can we do to help support schools that are pushing these endeavors for their students?
So we know right now funding is kind of a toss-up. There's a lot of concern and uncertainty in the areas of funding, but I will say that STEM and science specifically is not one of the areas that has a large area of concern. The National Science Foundation still has grants and funding there, as well as there's a lot of Texas-based programs that can support STEM funding and initiatives. A lot of schools doing STEM nights can actually be covered through ESSER funds, which builds that community impact. I worked at a rural elementary school and we used ESSER funding to do that, even though we were a Title I school. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for funding. It's just looking to see what matches your school district and your description. I actually just came back from a STEM educators conference in Chicago called Beyond 100K. And at that conference, we were really talking about STEM education, but also partnerships in the private sector. So Project Lead the Way, other areas that are not necessarily, we think, oh, STEM education, but there's a lot of partners that we could bridge with so that we could meet those needs for our school districts. We just have to know what they are and to reach out there through them. So that Beyond 100K is helping work and build those bridges so that hopefully we can improve that science education network.
I want to talk about, we're not doing STEM, right? That's not what we're doing. STEM is everywhere. It's a part of everything we do. So how are you trying and working to change the narrative on, oh, we have a STEM program, but no, you don't have a STEM program. STEM is everywhere. It's a part of everything we do. So how do you change that narrative with the folks that you're working with?
So I think having a strong foundation and understanding of the importance of STEM and how it is connected to everything really is the baseline. Having that foundational understanding, once our teachers have that understanding themselves, they can better teach it to their students. A lot of the connections are actually shown in the TEKs themselves. If you go into a science TEK, there's a lot of what is the history behind scientists, and they give you X, Y, Z. What is the connection to the world today? And they give you X, Y, Z examples that you need to connect with. So if you really look deeper, it's embedded within the TEKs, but too many of our educators, especially those that are in EC6 that don't have the hard science background, aren't necessarily familiar with it themselves. So if we can help build that familiarity and that content confidence, then they will feel more confident in then teaching it to their students and making those interdisciplinary connections, which are so important. There are so many ways that we can connect history to English, to science, to engineering. Leonardo's Bridge is a great example. If we look at the engineering practices and the science and the physics behind it, but it's also connected to history, social studies, English language arts, art. We talk about STEAM, we add that art connection in. Leonardo's Bridge is an excellent example of that STEAM integration. But if our teachers aren't confident in that underlying content, then they're not going to be able to as easily share that and connect that to all other areas.
So when you're out in the schools and you're working with Denton and other schools, and because I'm hoping there's an effort to expand partnerships beyond just Denton, right? Yeah.
Yes, I'm actually working with Dr. Catherine Howarder in the special ed department here at TW, and we're working on an NSF grant for a rural initiative in Region 9, which is based in Wichita Falls, but it hits all of the rural areas just west of the Denton-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we're looking at developing a grant to do a professional development, 3-year-long professional development for our rural STEM educators to help support them through their use of STEM pedagogy, but also Magic School AI has partnered with us. We have a letter of support from the founder of Magic School AI because he has acknowledged that meeting those needs of our rural school districts are incredibly important. I come from rural school districts. Every bit of my 10 years of experience was in rural schools. So even though we are making those strong connections to the Denton area, my hope is that throughout my time here that we can continue to branch out and meet those needs into the rural areas
That's
as well.
great. Just spread out, get everywhere we can, and hit the students that need that attention, because the rural areas in Texas, there's a lot of rural areas, are limited. I was even talking with a superintendent friend of mine who was, they're still struggling with internet access in some areas. And so while we could get into another conversation for another day about AI, and where are we with artificial intelligence and teachers understanding AI, I think most of them are throwing up their hands going, I don't even know when I would put that in my lessons, right?
Yes, it's just another thing to add on top of the pile of educators. I feel like a lot of teachers are kind of in that point where, oh yeah, we know it's great, but it's just one more thing that I can't add to my plate right now. So through this initiative, we really want to focus on how can you really use it as a tool to support you rather than something else added on top of the pile.
So what would you say to principals who want to do more of this work, or school districts that want to do more of this work and want to engage in expanding STEM in their schools or their school districts? What's your message for them?
Well, I think that first and foremost, they need support in doing this. And the best person to reach out to immediately is your region center. Each region center in Texas has a STEM or a science support person, and they're going to have a lot of resources that the teachers in the districts can build upon that are very specific to their area. Like I said, out in Region 9, being rural, they have a lot different requirements and needs than what the Denton area schools do. So if you're an administrator and you're interested in how can I support STEM education, how can I grow STEM education within my school district, I would say the first person to reach out to is your region center. Then from there, they'll be able to connect you to other outreach programs or support, or even those external partners that they've already built and developed, and they can really tailor that to your specific school district.
That's great. I think our regional service centers, and for those of you who don't know, there's 20 in Texas. We call them educational service centers, and their job is to largely support with professional development and assessment, in some cases even email support for the rural districts. For smaller districts who just don't have the budget to manage some of these larger projects like some of the bigger school districts do. And in Texas, we do things a little differently. We have over 1,000 school districts. It's kind of strange. But nonetheless, the service centers are there to support, and so that's a really good point. Students, what's been the student response? When you're out and they're doing all these fun activities and you've got the big science nights coming up, what's been their response?
So our K-12 students, our elementaries is where we're at now. We're hoping to eventually branch into middle and high school as we develop those partnerships. But the elementary students are so excited. They see our maroon, they see our TWU coming, and they know it's going to be a fun day. Yeah. We actually just finished the house huddle where we built more than 800 pollinator pearls. We met with Hill, and we actually went out and had students develop their pollinator pearls, wrap their seed balls, and discuss the importance of pollinators in Texas, natural natural ecosystems within the Texas area. And they took that, and they can take it home and actually plant it in their garden and watch something grow. So we actually have a big pollinator timeline where we're going to work with Hill to really develop that. We're looking at life cycles of butterflies, how that ties directly into the teaks, especially in pre-K through 5, and building those connections there. But when the students see us coming in our maroon, they know that it's going to be something fun.
That's great. So you are doing amazing work. It's fabulous what you've been able to bring to Texas Women's in just a short amount of time. So, but you've got more planned. So talk to me a little bit about your research, your vision. What's next for Dr. Ashley?
So I've talked a little bit about the grant that I'm working on with Dr. Howarder, trying to reach out and reach into the rural areas. I'm also working closely with the School of Sciences, the hard sciences here at TWU, to build a connection and actually start a 6th through 8th grade middle school summer camp that connects and supports our existing high school science camps here at TWU. It really will focus on kind of all areas of science and STEM, because 6th through 8th grade really hasn't gotten into hard focus areas. Like when you get to high school, you've got more physics, chemistry, et cetera. So this 6th or 8th grade camp, we're actually hoping to get funding so that we can launch it in summer of this coming year. And it would be a great opportunity for students to come on campus and get some experience in science and education. and hopefully be able to support and go into those high school areas. If we can hook them while they're younger, they're going to be more interested. There's actually tons of research out there about elementary specifically, and we lose a lot of girls in STEM in third grade. And a lot of that comes from we're not doing fun things. We're not doing hands-on learning. Our elementary educators don't have that hard confidence in the content of science, and so they're not doing the fun activities with them in as meaningful a way. A lot of them are. That's not to say everyone is, but that's the area where the confidence seems to be lacking, is in EC6.
Well, and the time factor too. That was always a complaint that my teachers had, is just it takes time to set up those labs. It takes time to set up the equipment, and then the cleanup, and then and what if kids get hurt, things like that. So building that confidence that you do have the time, or you do have the support. So
well, and like we talked about just a little bit earlier, having that interdisciplinary connections, if our EC6 teachers especially are confident in their knowledge of science and how it connects to other areas, they'll be able to more easily and effectively implement those lessons. So you can talk about engineering when you're doing ELAR. And if we help them foster that growth and development in those areas, then they'll be able to start with a unit and build out from there.
Well, Dr. Ashley, thank you so much for being on the School Rules Podcast. I appreciate you, appreciate your time. You're doing fabulous work. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. Several years ago, I was attending a training or professional development, and I was introduced to this concept called the first follower, which was a TED Talk done by an entrepreneur by the name of Derek Sivers. And in this video, and I'll post a little bit of the video here, you can see that the concept is that leadership is overrated in a sense, that you don't have a leader unless you have that lone nut, which is, you don't have a leader until that lone nut, in this case, has a follower or the first follower. And leaders are nothing without their first follower. And if you watch the video, and I'll link it, I just posted a little clip there for you to see. It's a fascinating video, and just this observation on really what is leadership and how it works, and basically building momentum and building trust behind you that you might be the lone nut doing something a little wacky and a little crazy and a little different, but sometimes when people buy in and build through your momentum, you have a movement. And being brave enough to be that one person, that lone nut, to send forth out into the world your thoughts and feelings and ideas of leadership, getting that first follower to come in and go, yeah, I like what's going on here. That is really what leadership is about. So I encourage you, watch the video. I've posted a link below on what the first follower concept is. And I look for the first follower concept is often. I share it with my class, and I think it's just a fascinating way of looking at leadership. Now, I want to talk more about the first follower concept, because it's not my ideas. These are Derek's ideas. But if you haven't seen the movie Wicked, the movie also demonstrates the first follower concept. And if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. But if you have seen it, about halfway through the movie, there is a dance scene. And in this case, the lone nut in this case, the leader, Elphaba, she does this little dance. She's a little outlier in everyone else. And she walks into the scene, and she already knows that she's going to be ridiculed. And she's been someone that's been ridiculed anyway because of the color of her skin and the way she dresses, and she's just a little bit eccentric, and she doesn't mix with the rest of the crowd that's going to Shiz University. And as she walks into the room and she sees all the eyes falling upon her and people making fun of her and talking with her, talking about her and the way she's dressed and her her hat, her now famous hat that she's wearing, that Glenda gave to her because she wanted her to feel the way that she's feeling. She wanted her to feel like an outcast. She begins to do this dance. And it's an awkward dance, kind of moving her elbows, kind of kicking her feet around. She puts her hand up on her head and she does this finger wiggle, and she keeps kicking around and moving her hands all erratically. And everyone's laughing at her. Everyone's making fun of her. Everyone is continuing to ridicule her for this crazy little dance that she's doing that just kind of represents what they think about her anyway, this different, eccentric outcast of a person that she's viewed as at the university. Now, again, if you haven't seen the movie, sorry I'm spoiling it for you, but I think you should go and watch it, because what happens next is that Glenda, who's her roommate, Elphaba just did something nice for her before she walked in and did her dance. And Glenda's already feeling bad. She's already feeling a little guilty. And as she's watching everyone around the room ridicule and make fun of Elphaba for the dance that she's doing and the way she's dressed and how she's acting, Glenda starts to feel a little bad, a little guilty. She responds by walking out on the dance floor. And you have to know, Glenda is probably the most popular person at the school. She's the most visible, the most known. And now she's walking out onto the floor and she starts to imitate and do Elphaba's dance along with her, trying to get all the movements down and the elbows and the kicks and the finger wave. And as she walks out onto the floor, everyone looks at her like, what are you doing? How could you do this weird dance with this strange person? And she looks at her friends, she goes, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to accept this person as she is, and because I'm doing it, that makes me the lone nut. That makes me, in our first follower concept, Glenda is now the first follower by stepping out on the floor and saying that she is also a leader. And what she wants to be a part of this strange dance, this new movement that's now starting to gather steam. In a sense, what Glenda is saying to the rest of the crowd, this crowd that likes her and thinks that she's interesting and popular, and there's a whole song called Popular, she's actually saying to that crowd that this dance is okay, this behavior is acceptable, and I am going to do it too. So as Elphaba and Glenda are dancing, and they're getting better in their movements, and Glenda's starting to catch along, you see and now we have that momentum. No longer is Glenda or Elphaba the lone nuts. Now we have a movement. The people are starting to feel like, yeah, this is cool. This is acceptable. It's safe to do this. And now as people start to jump in, the shame of being a spectator is now being replaced with the fear of being left out. And nobody wants to be left out. We literally have an acronym for it, FOMO, the fear of being left out. Nobody wants to be left out. So now we have a movement. And as it starts to build steam, it starts to move along, ultimately now everyone is doing this dance. And it shifts the whole entire dynamics. And Glenda and Elphaba embrace, they hug, and there's crying. And now everyone accepts this woman that they once ridiculed and made fun of, because she was brave enough to step out onto the floor and do her dance. This strange, erratic, weird, offbeat dance. So she's the leader, and she'll get all the credit. At least that's how Derek puts it. She's the leader. They'll get all the credit. The first follower who takes that lone nut and embraces them as an equal and says, yes, what you're doing, I like it, and I want to be a part of it. And then inviting others to also be a part of it. So I love the first follower concept so much because it embraces this idea of courage and being able to step aside and go, you know what I see here is different, and I buy into it and I want to be a part of it. But even in the movie, you could see, Glenda's act of solidarity, saying that, through her body language, that this is not something to laugh at, but this is something to join in and be a part of. And she literally shows everyone how to be a follower, how to be a part of this movement, and that Elphaba is a leader. And I love the movie so much. The movie is great, the play is great, the music is wonderful, but it embodies the first follower concept so much. And just this movement, it embodies Derek Sivers' message that the first follower is as equally as important as the leader themselves. And the first follower concept is a form of leadership. And it shows how, Glenda puts the friendship that she has with Elphaba above her own social ego to show everyone at the university that, yes, you could be part of this too, and that it's perfectly okay. So using her status to make Elphaba an equal, which is just an amazing scene in the movie, and it embodies the first follower concept completely. So I invite you, watch the first follower video, watch Wicked, and particularly that scene where I think the first follower concept is just so highly wonderful in the film. You should check it out.